Hi folks, I hope you're well. I'm keeping up with the recordings on the Greek theatre vases to help you with that unit. Today we're going to have a look at the Choregos vase. This is another quite quirky vase from the 4th century, so you might want to watch this video and have a look at the Chiron bell crater video to compare the information across the two. So let's have a look at how we would write a 10 marker on this vase. So the first thing to know about the utility of the vase as a source, if we were perhaps looking at it as a source on Greek comedy, is that it's South Italian and it's from the 4th century. So very turn of the 5th to 4th century. That suggests it's reflecting trends in comedy from a different time and place, and it's showing a point where when theatre is being performed in a greater variety of spaces, it takes on what I called in my previous video a pan-Hellenic appeal. So it's something that is relevant and relatable to a greater variety of Greek audiences beyond Athens. If we look at the vase, we have some clues from the staging that we are looking at a South Italian theatre or 4th century theatre and not the theatre of Dionysus, sorry. Because we have a built-up stage, we have a staircase, we have like a wooden door. We seem to be in a wooden theatre building that could be movable. Okay, it could be built and dismantled and moved. Or it could just be a minor rural one. If we look at the characters on here, we can get a gist for where the humour's coming from and what the premise of the play might have been. So the two characters I've circled are Piraeus on the right and Aegisthus on the left. Piraeus seems to be an ambassador for comedy. He's on an upturned bucket, he's a comic character, he's in a clearly comic costume, and he seems to be proclaiming some sort of speech with some presumed authority because of his stance, with his hand on his hip and his finger pointed up. Aegisthus on the left isn't in comic dress. He is wearing the long clothing we would expect of a tragic character. He's wearing leather buskins we'd expect a tragic actor to wear. He's labelled as Aegisthus, so we know it's him, and he's wearing a travelling cap, as though he's just come in from elsewhere. The pedestal that Piraeus is on, and the fact that Aegisthus has been drafted in, might suggest we have tragedy versus comedy, because the two men in between are the Choregoi. Remember, the Choregos' job was to fund a play. They would pay for the production value, and they would basically be in charge of putting the play on. Interestingly, here we have two Choregoi who are different ages. So on the left-hand side, we have the older Choregoi, the older Choregos, singular, sorry, looking towards tragedy. On the right-hand side, we have the younger Choregos looking towards comedy. And we might have a bit of evidence here for generational humour. Generational humour, again, is pan-Hellenic appeal, like it's something where you wouldn't really need to be from a particular time and place to get it. We see it really pointedly in plays like Aristophanes' Wasps, where the two characters, Delicleon and Philocleon, are father and son and have very generational opinions. But it would make sense for this to be used for humour in the 4th century even more, perhaps, because it's got to have that broader appeal. So if we sum up the strengths and weaknesses of the vase then, the strengths are that it shows a skene building and a built-up stage, so we get some idea of how things would have been produced and how they would have been dramatised. It shows the distinction between comic and tragic costumes from the same era, from the same timeline. It shows that the Choregos who paid for the plays to be put on is mocked. And actually, even in the 5th century, Aristophanes wrote a play called the Proagon. The Proagon would essentially have been a trailer for the play, like a taster of the play. So there are comedies about the process of theatre and about the process of drama, even before the 4th century. The labelled characters give us an indication as to what it might involve, so comedy versus tragedy. If we think about the weaknesses, it's from the 4th century, so we can't really compare it. With Aristophanes. There were many comedy developments in the 4th century, and although 5th century comedy does make light of tragedy in aspects of little like paratragedy, little jokes, quotations, the premise and the plot didn't tend to be tragic. And this is something that's perhaps developed more in the 4th century because of it having a broader appeal. But we just have the titles and the fragments that indicate that. We don't have full plays to tell us that. The Choregoi might have been part of a chorus, But if so, the artist has made an artistic choice to just put them as a two who were having like a competition, who were combative with one another. Okay. So I hope this was helpful. I really recommend going and watching the Chiron Bell Creative video and trying to actually write a 10 marker on these vases because they are the trickier ones on the unit. I'm going to keep going with the vase videos for Greek theatre, and don't forget to like, subscribe and share to keep the channel going. Thanks.